Welcome back everyone, John Pano here with another video. Today we're going to be creating a tier list specifically for Mirror Dungeon. With the update to Mirror Dungeon and the changes to hard mode Mirror Dungeon that's going to be coming up, I thought it was time to take a look at all the characters and give them brand new, more appropriate tier lists. I've played with all these characters again just to test out where they all kind of are, and I would say that right now, damage is king, okay? Building a team around a certain gimmick, like doing a burn team, a rupture team, a tremor team, those aren't that good right now, just for specifically Mirror Dungeon, only because with human battles you can't target the specific human, and even with abnormality battles it doesn't last that long. Realistically speaking, damage is king, but however, with the changes to Mirror Dungeon, you're now getting the access to replace a skill 1 with a skill 2 or a skill 1 with a skill 3 in one of the nodes. This basically acts as like pseudo skill cycling, so it basically makes certain characters a little bit more viable than they were before, because now you can cycle to your skills faster. With that being said, we're going to be doing an updated list, and this is mainly catered towards Mirror Dungeon, alright? So the base sinners. D tier, by the way, just means most of the time it's either benched or not used or really bad. So Yi Sang, he's basically benched. These are the kind of the characters right now and where they are sitting for me personally. Move this here. Move this here. Here, 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 and here. So, with the base sinners, to go over Heathcliff, Faust, and Otis, these three characters have really strong base utility. Heathcliff, good coin flip. Faust, representation emitter, very good. Otis, very easy to get her ego, as well as just a decent coin clash value. Gregor has got Ledgerman, and Ledgerman is a very, very strong AoE ego. That's why these guys are here. These guys are in this tier because Rodion, she's decent in the sense that her passive is really strong, but outside of her passive, no use. Mersal, only good for his ego. Outside of that, you don't really use him. Onglu, a stronger character than these guys, but overall kind of weak too. Sinclair is just a strong base Sinclair Sinner ego. He's got a strong identity for a base kit, but that's it. These four people are on the bottom because Don Quixote, kind of bad. Ishmael, Ryoshu, Yi Sang, these guys don't offer that much to the team in terms of utility. They're kind of really selfish characters or just super gimmicky with their passives and kit, so that's why they're down here. Now, 2-star characters. 2-star characters are in a little bit of a different category. So most of the 2-star characters are kind of not used or bad or really reliant on a certain gimmick, but most of them are doable. So let's start with this. 7 section, L-Corp Faust, this version, C section goes here. 7 section, Mersal, Honglu, Heathcliff, Ishmael, LCCB, Sinclair, Marakai, down here, B, here, 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 and here. So, let's rapid fire through this. The 7 sections, they are okay units for what they do with decent coin flips, but the section 6 in this way, they are just not good enough in the sense that I would use it unless I had no other choice. Because right now with these 3 characters, if you have Encore Sinclair, use that. If you have the sous chef, Ryoshi, use that. If you have the Spice Bush identity, use that. These guys are decent in the sense that they can hold their own. They have a decent enough kit that it can work, but it's just a little bit too gimmicky to make it work. W Corp, Agent Faust, no need to really talk about that, but honestly speaking, she's in a charge team, but charge is just in a weird spot. Burn is also in a weird spot as well. Even though we have the burn units, they just don't offer enough utility to just make it worthwhile to use it at all. So same thing with Rose Spanners. The Rose Spanners units here, they act more like tank utility. They have some damage, but it's very minuscule, and they don't do that much. Don Quixote, same issue. She's like tank utility, doesn't do a lot of damage, but she's just like a decent tank. Cutthroat, Blade Lineage, Otis, she's okay, but she's just in a really weird spot with her kit right now, so that's why she's here. Same thing with Lob, Ego, Sloshing Ishmael. Tank utility, not a lot of damage. These units here though, L Corp, Remnant, Faust, Don Quixote, and She Ishmael, these guys are conditional on their damage. More so these two, they've got like strong, decent damage by themselves. But the issue is that you need it to fulfill a certain speed condition or health total before you get them to that certain power point. But overall, can be used, just very underrated, I would say. Faust is good because she's got representation emitter no matter what. She can offer Rupture and a little bit of utility, and she does like pretty decent damage. So it's one of those weird things where she's also a little bit conditional under the fact that if the unit hasn't taken damage, or if she hasn't taken damage last turn, she can do a lot more damage with her skill 3, which is nice. Now, Marakai Sinclair, he's just really good for his passive. It does extra thinking or gloom damage with his passive, so he's more so used if he's on the bench. You don't really use him in your main character's take. Otis is strong, decently strong in the sense that she's like the only few character that you could quote-unquote call a designated support. But because she either offers defense boost or attack boost, and attack boost is not always guaranteed because of the skill 2, and her skill 2 just does damage, I would say that her utility as a support is a little bit hampered, but overall, her coin flip, even though it's a single coin flip, if you have super high sanity, it makes it really impossible for enemies to be able to clash with her because of her crazy high coin value, assuming you have a high sanity. Now, Incorp, Heathcliff, Rodion, these two, they actually do solid damage, surprisingly. Even though their damage is not on par with a lot of the 3 stars, they actually do pretty decent damage with utility with their nails, so that's why they're in B tier. RB Suchef, Gregor, he's more so here for his passive. His passive is what makes him good. Healing is quite nice. One of the few ways to get heal on your team, but in terms of damage, he max more like a tank utility. He doesn't offer a lot of damage. Honglu, Ishmael, now these guys are my favorite. So Honglu, his Cloud Cutter is just insane. This guy has just done insane damage off the get-go. For a 2-star unit, he feels omega busted. LCDB Ishmael is one of those weird units where even though she's a bullet unit, she offers a lot of utility with her Quake rounds with Tremor Burst, because with the addition of Roast Spanner, now Tremor Burst is slightly more viable. She also has Rupture in her kit with her Suppression, so she's got Suppression and Fragility, which is pretty nice if you want to build a kit around her. Now, 3-star units. This is where things get shaken up quite a bit. Now, do understand that this is how this is going to be. Mersault's kind of in an interesting spot. We're going to throw him into SS tier, SS tier, S tier, A tier, B tier, S tier, C tier, SS tier, C tier, C tier, SS tier, S tier, 8 tier, 8 tier, 8 tier, C tier, 8 tier, SS tier. So with these current units, this is the mindset with it. Because how strong Ncorp Sinclair is, and if you have Ncorp Sinclair, you're always going to use him in your team no matter what at this moment. He just does way too much damage to not use. The only issue is his sanity. His sanity makes it so that you are more often than not going to Ego Corrode at least 2-3 times in your Mirror Dungeon run. And as a result, especially if you're using the Stew Ego, you're going to hit 3 of your teammates, which is terrible. Or if you're using Impending Doom, you're going to hit one of your teammates really, really hard. Which makes it so that healing becomes very important, because his ego with his Soup's ego will hit the 3 lowest health units. And if you Ego Corrode and hit your own teammates, they're going to be even lower. So they're guaranteed to die the next time he Ego Corrodes. So healing becomes very strong. So Faust, Mersault, these two are the only 2 characters that offer guaranteed healing, sort of, with Mersault's Pursuance, which is his heal ego, and Faust's Fluid Sac, which is also a heal ego. Faust is even more useful because of her representation emitter, as well as her Fluid Sac, which can, manipulate his sanity. Heathcliff and Ryoshu just do tons of damage. Ryoshu does quite a bit of damage on her own by her base kit, and Heathcliff is just like strong upfront damage as long as he has bullets, right? Gregor and Don Quixote are here more so because Gregor, with his Ledgerman, is actually pretty strong. He's got some pretty high coin flip value. Don Quixote is in S tier right now because of how you can replace skills. You can actually get rid of one of her skill 1 and replace it with a skill 2, or skill 3 actually, which makes her very strong. But this is obviously if you have a Teleport Eagle. The Teleport Eagle makes getting to 10 charge much easier, but that's just how her kit plays. Otis is just good for clashing in general. She doesn't do a ton of damage, but her utility for clashing is just way too strong not to have her at S tier, which is why she's here. She's a little bit slow in terms of damage, but she offers just good consistency in your team. Now, N-Corp Sinclair, there's just no way of going around it. He is just Omega busted. He's probably in a tier of his own, honestly. Realistically speaking, all of these 4 would move down a tier because this guy, he's sort of in a tier of his own. Like, just he's just that strong. The only time where he's not strong is when he has high sanity, and at that point you've done goofed up. But yeah, keep his sanity low and you're just doing mad damage. Now, this 2-star Sinclair, I would say he sits on the B tier. So he's a very strong identity. It's just that with his kit, he does lack a little bit of, consistency. He's only good if your enemy units have Rupture on them, and it's really hard to apply Rupture consistently, especially in human battles. If you're in an Abnormality battle, it's still also very hard because any tick of damage that any takes, it takes off a count of Rupture, so it's just hard to have Rupture stick. So that's why he's in B tier, but overall, pretty solid unit, just not as good as N-Corp Sinclair. Ong Lu, he sits in, I would say, S tier. He feels a little bit weak to me for a 3-star unit, but that's only because in terms of damage, he actually does quite solid damage. It's just that his kit is a little bit confusing. He's a tank damage dealer is basically what he is. He's essentially a really tanky guy that does like pretty solid damage, but he's nothing. Basically, he doesn't excel at anything. He doesn't excel in damage, he doesn't excel in utility, he doesn't excel in tankiness. He's just like a really solid unit overall, but compared to units that do a lot more damage than him, say Sinclair, Ryoshu, Heathcliff, he's just a tad shy below. Very strong unit overall. We just have to wait for content that will just allow, this character to shine. And this is basically the updated tier list. You obviously have like all the other characters that you don't really use. Like these 4 characters, Ishmael, Rodion, Sinclair, Mersault, you don't really use them. They're just better alternatives right now. Their kit is pretty conditional and it relies on just certain things to get them going. Even Sinclair, to get his kit going, it's just pretty slow. And that's why they're in C tier. For the amount of investment you're putting into them, not worth. Blade Lineage Xiaosu Yisang, a little bit better. He's got, I would say, more consistent damage because he's got some really high coin flip potentials, but he does have the poise mechanic which allow you to crit, which is pretty nice, and eventually, once you get going in long battles, he can do quite a bit of damage. Now, the Hong Lu, solid damage, I would say, really solid damage, but he's conditional on having coin hits land on heads, and his Mutilate, well, it's only really good on just getting consecutive kills if you can like reset off of him. Outside of that though, it's just other egos, there's other unit cases like say the K-Corp Honglu or Honglu Kurokumu is just a little bit more consistent with his damage. Spice Bush Yisang, even though he's the first identity with AoE in his kit, to get him to the point where he can AoE takes a little bit of time and ramping up, so very conditional, but still a very strong unit. Rodion Rose Banner, he's just a solid overall utility Tremor Burst damage character. She does like a solid amount of damage, and she's also got like decent eagles to back it up. Lord Bebo's Sunshower Heathcliff, he's a considerable amount weaker than Heathcliff, but he's also a considerable amount more consistent in terms of damage. In a long extended battle, he'll do more damage than this Heathcliff, but usually speaking, there isn't any content that really forces you to have to fight more than 3 rounds worth. Basically, Heathcliff only ever runs out of ammo for like maybe a turn or 2, and then the battle's done. You need to have a battle where it lasts omega long for it to make sense that I would not use Heathcliff gun instead of using Sunshowers. Sunshowers was better in longer fights. Just Heathcliff though just can thread through content, so that's why we keep them here. And that's basically the tier list right now. This is obviously catered towards Mirror Dungeon. I would say that if you have any of these characters up here, it's pretty strong. Obviously the SS tier units, they're more so for specifically building around Sinclair. But honestly speaking, if you have any of these characters up here, you're doing good. Throw any of these characters onto your team and your team is like quite strong. If you're wondering who else to throw in like whatever other characters you have. Obviously, I mean, technically speaking, you could make an argument to move these guys into like B tiers, technically speaking, but still pushing it a little bit. I would say just going through this is going to be pretty much your standard go-to. Obviously, base sinners, you don't really use them that much anymore. They're just really there for beginners if you don't have any of the other units. But if any of the units, just use those instead. Anyways, if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, let me know down in the comment section down below. And as usual, I stream on Twitch basically every day right now. And join my Discord community. We talk about all things Limbus and Gacha related. So yeah, that's about it. John Panhill signing off. See you guys later. Bye-bye for now.